Let's take a look right now at CBS Sports ranking of the top 25 Power Five college football coaches entering the season. Let's start with Tennessee. Josh Heupel jumps from number 33 to number 16 in a year. That's a very significant jump. When you start getting into the 5 to 15 range, you're talking about guys that are competing for championships, that are knocking on the door at especially a 4-team playoff, but a 12-team playoff as well. And then your next level are guys that have won a championship. So what do you think of Josh Heupel being number 16 in the country? Thoughts, Caleb?
I think this is significant, and one of the standout parts of this ranking is who Josh Heupel jumped. He jumped a lot of people, but one of the people that was at the expense of, who took a giant nosedive, was Jimbo Fisher, who went from 5 to 20.
Yeah.
So Josh Heupel went from 33 to 16. So people are putting more faith in Josh Heupel than a national championship head coach now after just 2 years at Tennessee. And I don't think they're wrong. I mean, I put more faith in Josh Heupel than Jimbo Fisher. Other people he jumped, I mean, he's higher than Mike Gundy now. That threw me off. I didn't think he'd be higher than Mike Gundy. He's higher than Mark Stoops. That threw me off. Mike Norvell also made a giant jump. He made a bigger one than Josh Heupel, from 47 to 19. But again, that's because everybody is begging for Florida State to be good, and they favor them more than any other program in college football. But a couple other ones that jumped big. Brett Bielema, but Josh Heupel still ahead of him. Oh, another national championship head coach Josh Heupel jumped. Here's one. Mac Brown. I always forget he won a national title, but
Dude, too. Mac's kind of a weird one. He's kind of in that Steve Spurrier point in his career where basically anything he does at North Carolina, like Steve Spurrier did at South Carolina, is kind of gravy, right? I mean, they've already had incredible careers. Now, Mac Brown was certainly helped out by Vince Young. I think Steve Spurrier's a better coach, so I'm not comparing them on actual resumes or merit, but anything he does at North Carolina is kind of gravy. So he's hard to really peg in a list like this, I think.
Yeah, you know who Mac Brown, funny enough, it's funny you brought up Steve Spurrier. That makes more sense. Until he went back to North Carolina, Mac Brown reminded me of Philip Fulmer more than any other coach in college football. They just seemed like parallels of each other to a certain degree.
Well, he still does to me. So I think Mac Brown and Philip Fulmer, there are a lot of similarities between the two. The one that is not similar is that Mac Brown was willing to take a lesser football school because he wanted to keep working and had kind of this second enthusiasm with football. And we didn't see that out of Philip Fulmer. I think there was talk that he might take another job at one point, like a lower level group of 5 school. I'm kind of glad he didn't do that for his legacy. And then if he had any interest in getting back in athletics, Tennessee gave him an open door to be an athletic director, which was very questionable at the time.
Yes, very true. Which, again, talk about putting your legacy at risk. He did that with his athletic director tenure. A few that were ahead. Dave, I don't know where you come in on this, but I'm not so sure Dave Clawson should be ahead of Josh Heupel. I understand he's done a great job at Tennessee. He's one spot ahead of Josh Heupel, and he's done a great job at Wake Forest. But I think we're still underselling the turnaround Josh Heupel directed at Tennessee in 2 years. I think I've been a bit of a Derek Dooley defender in the past. I've always talked about Derek Dooley inheriting a program on fire in an impossible situation. Josh Heupel, I thought, inherited a more impossible situation than Derek Dooley, and he turned it around quicker than any coach I've seen. So I think I might have him ahead of Dave Clawson, even though I think Dave Clawson hasn't maxed out what you can do at Wake Forest.
Yes, agreed. But if Dave Clawson was just a fantastic coach, he's maxed out what he's done at Wake. He was a former offensive coordinator at Tennessee. If he's that great and highly thought of by agents and other college football types, he would have got another job right now. Maybe he's comfortable, but I doubt that. I mean, football at Wake is a whole different thing compared to what he's used to, what he's seen at Tennessee. So I think he would like to be able to have a job in which he could compete for championships. So let's get to four downs right now. Four downs brought to you by our friends at Vassy Lawn and Garden. Man alive, it's worth the drive. Vassy Lawn and Garden, their buying power will take care of you and your pocketbook. How do they do that? Because with their buying power, they'll save you on industrial, commercial, and residential mowers. It is time for four downs, and it's brought to you by the one, the only Vassy Lawn and Garden. Go to vassy.com.
Four downs. Four questions. Four answers. The Dave Hooker Show. Four downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Okay. So they have Nick Saban number one over Kirby Smart. I understand the history, but right now, from what I have seen, and keep in mind, Georgia is 1-7 against Alabama, so it's not like they've completely turned the tide. Hint, hint, hint. But based off of the recruiting and what I've seen on the field, I don't know how Kirby Smart's not the best coach right now in the nation. You want to take Alabama based off history, you can, but who you hiring tomorrow, not just because of age. Let's say you could get 5 years out of either. Let's don't worry about age. Let's say they're both 60 and you got 5 years to get as much as you can out of them. Which one are you taking, Kirby Smart or Nick Saban?
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm still taking Nick Saban. If I can get 5 years, I'm still taking Nick Saban. And I think, look, Kirby Smart's all things being equal, Kirby Smart's at a better job than Nick Saban's at. That's crazy to say, but if all things are being equal, Georgia's a better job than Alabama. It's an easier job.
You're absolutely right. I've got no argument with that. I think it's a better job. I think it's got a better recruiting base. So that was first down. You would have Alabama number one, as would I. Then you have Dabo Swinney coming in at number three. Sorry, not on board with this. I'm not sure that he'd be in my top five, to be real frank with you. And the reason is I think Brent Venables put together that defense a lot like John Chavis with talent was able to do under Philip Fulmer. We could go on and on and on about how on the other side of the ball, Gus Malzahn at Auburn and all the guys that have had success as coordinators really propped up a head coach. I think Venables propped up Dabo Swinney to a large extent, and I just don't see them winning another championship. So behind him is Lincoln Riley, Jim Harbaugh, Brian Kelly. Is Dabo Swinney on second down overrated? I say absolutely at three.
It's hard for me because I get your point. As a pure X's and O's coach, I'm with you. But the thing is, I can't knock Dabo Swinney. He's really good at hiring the right staff. I mean, he just went and got Garrett Riley out of TCU. So, yeah, I think that, we talk about the guru versus a CEO when it comes to head coaches. I don't think there's a better CEO in college football of a program than Dabo Swinney because he knows who to hire. Now, he doesn't know what to say all the time. So, no, I would probably knock him down. I would probably put Jim Harbaugh ahead of him, and I would probably put Brian Kelly ahead of him. I'm not sure I'd put Lincoln Riley because, look, I'm going to talk about this later this summer. It's one of the topics I've wanted to dive into, comparing Lincoln Riley to Josh Heupel, because they're very similar in certain ways, but they're like Heupel. There's a big question if Lincoln Riley will ever have the defense to win a national championship.
Okay, you said something a couple of different times about Riley going to Clemson. You seem sold on that as a great hire as an offensive coordinator. He was at TCU. They put up incredible numbers, but how much of that was Sonny Dykes? I feel like I'm still unsure if that's a fantastic hire or not.
Well, remember Sonny Dykes was fired by Cal, and he had a bit of a Mike Leach problem where, rest in peace, where he was committed to his way of running the air raid and no other way. And I think Garrett Riley is the one that added more versatility to it. And so I do think, look, I put a good bit of faith in Dabo with who he hires for his staff. Back in the day when he lost Chad Morris, which really helped propel Clemson, was Chad Morris and running that spread. I don't even think Chad Morris is that good of a coach, but he ran a spread when no one was running it. He goes and gets Tony Elliott, does a pretty good job there. I think what Dabo is very smart about doing is identifying what offense nobody else runs into his conference at the time And he says, hey, if I run that offense, they have to prepare for this in just 1 week. And that's going to be really, really hard. That's been Dabo's skill the whole time.
Kind of like Georgia Tech and the triple option for years. Okay, so the top 10, we're going to get to third down. Top 10, Penn State, James Franklin is number 10. Wisconsin's Luke Fickell, 9. Ohio State's Ryan Day. Utah's Kyle Whittingham is number 7. LSU's Brian Kelly, number 6. Michigan's Jim Harbaugh is number 5. Southern California's Lincoln Riley is number 4. We talked about Dabo. Out of that 4 through 10 group, third down, who is overrated?
I got 2 obvious ones, and it's 2 Big Ten East coaches, James Franklin at 10 and Ryan Day at 8.
We're on the same page. We're supposed to debate these, but I can't argue with either of those.
Yeah, they're just both massively overrated.
Yeah, I mean, I believe there are, we talk about LSU being a great job, and it is, but I believe there are 15 to 20 coaches that could do what Ryan Day has done at Ohio State. Now, Kyle Whittingham's the interesting one to me as we get to fourth down, the most underrated coach. So we did overrated. We agree on Franklin and Day. Who's the most underrated coach on this list?
All right, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm scared, but I'm ready.
All right, hold on to your seatbelts. Clark Lee should be way higher than 56.
Oh my gosh, at Vanderbilt?
Okay, but that's the point. He's at Vanderbilt. And he went 5-7. He beat Florida last year. Okay, and he beat Kentucky. He's at Vanderbilt. Look, okay, Dave, a question. Clark Lee is number 56. Billy Napier, or Eli Drinkwitz is number 51. And Billy Napier is number 43. Of those 3 coaches, who would you say did the best job last year?
Of which 3 again? Give them to me.
Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, Billy Napier at Florida.
Well, Clark Lee did.
Wait, how are Billy Napier and Eli Drinkwitz ahead of him?
Well, I was just going out of the top 10. You don't have Clark Lee anywhere close to the top 10, do you?
No, Clark Lee is not my top 10. If there's a coach who should be top 10 who is not, I would go with Mark Stoops. I just think I don't think we appreciate the job Mark Stoops has done at Kentucky.
Interesting. The Mike Gundy thing, where did he end up on this ranking?
Mike Gundy ended up at number, 17 on the ranking.
Can we get a fit down like the old Colorado game back in the day? He's always been overrated. Always.
I think he's got a good offensive mind. I think he's a snake. I'm going to be honest with Mike Gundy. One, for those who don't know, he lied to Trooper Taylor. You probably know that story, Dave, right? Just flat out lied to him to lure him away from Tennessee.
Yeah, but I think Trooper was pretty motivated to move too.
That's probably true. But on top of that, that whole I'm a man, I'm 40 thing that he did, that was nothing but virtue signaling at the time. That was to try to make a statement to recruits of, look at how I defend my players. Ask the player who he was defending at that time. That player was never happy about Mike Gundy doing that at all. He transferred at the end of the year. He says he will tell you to this day that Mike Gundy did that for show to promote himself and it wasn't in defense of the player.
Here's the bottom line with Mike Gundy. He's best known for having a mullet, best known for screaming his age at a reporter. And by the way, it was people that demean reporters, Greg Popovich, just for fun, for sport. I have a total distaste for them. It's not because I'm in the business. It's because you need to realize that's the conduit from you to the fans. And I've never thought that Mike Gundy was as special of an offensive mind as you sort of alluded to. I've always thought he was looking for the next job. He floated his name out there with Tennessee on several different occasions to get a raise at Oklahoma State. Has anybody really, really, really made a serious run at him? I'm not 100% sure. I think Tennessee has made phone calls over the years. Who haven't they called? But as a whole, I don't know anybody that's made a monstrous run at Mike Gundy, or they would have got him. I know Oklahoma State has a lot of money. I'm well aware of that. They have incredible oil boosters, but I just don't see him as an upper tier coach. It's been too long. If he ends his career at Oklahoma State without a national title, that's not a successful career, given some of the discussion about him being one of the top coaches and one of the top candidates in the nation. It's just not.